Hi everyone, Adam here, and this is what I watched for October. Just an overview of some of the movies I either watched for the first time or things that I saw at the cinema. We've got a few to get through, so I'll try and get through this as quickly as possible. So on the 3rd of October, I watched Good Boy. The synopsis is for this movie: trust his instincts. A loyal dog moves to a rural family home with his owner Todd, only to discover supernatural forces lurking in the shadows. As dark entities threaten his human companion, the brave pup must fight to protect the one he loves most. Well, I will give credit, this is quite an interesting concept. Most of it is from the perspective of the dog. The camera is always kept pretty much at the same height as a dog. And I will say it's a very cute dog and it does give a good performance. I thought this was okay. It only runs for 73 minutes, but I felt it still dragged on a little bit, to be honest. I mean, it's not a badly made film. I mean, it's not a complete dog of a film. Actually, a dog is in the complete film, so. But I'm not saying it's bad, but it's not great either. Interesting concept. But I just thought it was just a okay movie. On the 5th, I don't know why I do this to myself, but I watched Ouija Shark. Ah, dear. And I use the term movie very, very loosely. Here's the plot. Gonna need a bigger board. That's the tagline. A group of teenage girls summon an ancient man-eating shark after messing with the spirit board that washes up on the beach. An occult specialist must enter the shark's realm to rid the world of the deadly spirit ghost once and for all. Yeah. Best thing about this movie is probably the poster. It's a great poster. This is, some of you will know Wild Eye, who distribute very low budget movies. They're not always good. I've only watched 3 of them, and none of them have been good. Yeah, the acting's terrible. The shark looks like a rubber hand puppet. I can't really say anything positive, apart from it runs for 70 minutes. But even that's a slog. Yeah, but the worst part is I've found out this is now a trilogy. There's 3 Ouija Shark movies. Oh boy. It's just awful. I don't know how these movies get distributed. I guess because they're cheap to make, so I guess they make a profit. I guess that might be why. But it's awful. It's just awful. On the 10th, I watched Final Destination. This was a 25th anniversary screening at the cinema. Okay, so here's a synopsis. You probably know what the plot is by now, but here we go. It's no accidents, no coincidences, no escapes. You can't cheat death. After a teenager has a terrifying vision of him and his friends dying in a plane crash, he prevents the accident, only to have death hunt them down one by one. I do like the Final Destination films. They're actually, I mean, it's one of those concepts where they've done it a few times. They sometimes, especially with the last one, they kind of tweaked the formula a little bit with Final Destination Bloodlines, but it was good to go back, revisit the original. And compared to the others that followed, this seems a lot more quaint. To be honest, it's probably the best word. But the concept is so good, actually. And of course, it has the late, great Tony Todd, who only has one scene in this movie, but it's such a standout. You can see what they kept bringing him back. I mean, he was basically the figurehead of the franchise, and the plane crash premonition scene still holds up pretty well these days. Couple of likable leads too, in Devon Sawa. That's a fun name to say too. Ali Larder. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting franchise in that it doesn't actually have a physical villain, and it seems to work. On the 12th, I watched Tron Ares. Okay. Here's a synopsis. No going back, a highly sophisticated program called Ares is sent from the digital world into the real world on a dangerous mission, making humankind's first encounter with AI beings. Okay, yeah, so I didn't mind it. It's not great. The story is a bit thin, but it's one of those movies where visually it's fantastic, which you could probably say about most of the Tron movies. Of course, it does star Jared Leto, which some people are not a fan of, which I kind of understand. It's a little strange, that one. But I did like the lead who plays Eva Kim, Greta Lee. I thought she did a good job, and Evan Peters played uh, uh, a corporate villain, and he did a pretty good job. It does have a pretty decent cast. It also has Gillian Anderson, uh, Jeff Bridges, of course, who is pretty much the mainstay of the franchise. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I will say it's not great, but it's not awful. But it's somewhat entertaining, and they do a few callbacks to the original Tron. On the 14th, I watched Beast of War. This is an Australian shark movie. It's a synopsis. When their boat sinks while crossing the Timor Sea during World War II, a troop of young Australian soldiers must find a way to survive the harsh seas on a quickly shrinking raft. Hundreds of miles from anywhere, they must confront interpersonal conflicts, enemy attacks, and the advance of one very large, very hungry great white shark. I didn't mind this. It was an interesting concept. The shark looked pretty decent. They used a practical shark for this movie, so it looked a bit more realistic. And the cast all did a pretty good job. The lead, who I wasn't really familiar with, whose name is Mark Goldsmith, he did a really good job. I mean, you can tell it's not a huge budget film, but I think they did pretty well with what they had. There is a few violent shark attack scenes. Yeah, I mean the acting was pretty decent as well. So it's good as well, but not great, but completely watchable. On the 19th, I watched Black Phone 2, obviously the sequel to Black Phone. Obviously. Alright, here we go. Here's a synopsis. Dead is just a word. 4 years after escaping the grabber, Finney Blake is struggling with his life after captivity when his sister Gwen begins receiving calls in her dreams from the Black Phone and seeing disturbing visions of 3 boys being stalked at a winter camp. The siblings become determined to solve the mystery and confront a killer who's grown more powerful in death and more significant to them than either could imagine. I just thought it was okay. The young actors do a really good job. Of course, horror movies, even though the villain died in the original, brought him back because that's what they do. I liked aspects of it, but I didn't think it was as good as the first one. I prefer the first one personally than this one. I mean, there's some interesting ideas and concepts. Ethan Hawke does a good job, but his role is very limited in this one. He doesn't have a huge amount of screen time in this, so I mean, I'll give him credit for not doing the exact same thing as the first one, which is sometimes kind of rare for a horror movie. On the 24th, went to the cinema to see the 45th anniversary screening of The Shining. Here's a synopsis: a masterpiece of modern horror. Jack Torrance accepts a caretaker job at the Overlook Hotel, where he, along with his wife Wendy and their son Denny, must live isolated from the rest of the world for the winter, but they aren't prepared for the madness that lurks within. Of course, most people would be familiar with The Shining. It was interesting to see it at the cinema. It is really a slow burn movie. But of course, there's some good performances, both from Jack Nicholson and the late Shelley Duvall. And of course, the setting in the isolated hotel. Yeah, I mean, it is unusual to watch a movie that stars Jack Nicholson and his character goes crazy. But still, it's an interesting watch. I also thought the sequel, Doctor Sleep, that came out a few years ago was pretty good. I thought that's a bit underrated. On the 30th, I watched Shelby Oaks, and this is a movie directed by Chris Stuckman, who's a well-known YouTuber, film critic. I've only watched a little bit of his stuff. I know of him, but I haven't really watched that much of him. So the synopsis is: Who took Riley Brennan? A woman's obsessive search for a missing sister leads her into terrifying mystery at the hands of an unknown evil. It is a well-made movie, especially for a first-time director. Wasn't anyone I was in the cast I wasn't too familiar with, apart from Keith David. I mean, it was interesting how it starts. It starts off kind of like a documentary found footage, then goes into a regular movie. I will say Camille Sullivan as Mia, the lead, she does a really good job. She's trying to find her sister who's gone missing, even though she's one of those worst things ever, you know, a YouTuber. But I kind of found this movie to be just average. It does feel like it drags on a bit. It's only 91 minutes, but yeah, it's just average. I got a little bored with it, to be honest. But there was still some interesting ideas there, though. And on the 31st, I watched Frankenstein. This is the Guillermo del Toro version, the latest one. Here's a synopsis. Only monsters play God. Dr. Victor Frankenstein, a brilliant but egotistical scientist, brings a creature to life in a monstrous experiment that ultimately leads to the undoing of both the creator and his tragic creation. I gotta say, I really did enjoy this. It's well made, as you'd expect from Del Toro, but I thought the cast did a good job. It's a really decent cast. Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein. Jacob Elordi, I think that's how you pronounce his name, as a creature, who really does, as usual in a Frankenstein movie, makes him somewhat sympathetic. Of course, it looks great. The Gothic setting is fantastic. But yeah, I mean, it's a really good adaptation. I mean, I don't have to go too much into the story. Most people know the story of Frankenstein. I will say I actually enjoyed this. I don't want to say too much. I know but yeah, I'd recommend it. Good, some good effects as well, and I found the story, even though most people know the story, it's still quite a gripping story as well. Okay, so that's everything I watched for October. Let us know, have you seen any of these? What did you think? Like, comment, subscribe. I'm Adam, and I'll see you again soon.